I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Oma Stotarazara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Astotarazara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So yesterday we were discussing, we were going through the different chapters for the last 2 days of the first canto, and understanding from the first verse the thread of bhakti throughout, this constant glorification of Krishna and his sweet pastimes. I was watching a video last night, and Gurudev was saying that if one in this life listens to this Srimad Bhagavatam, even if he listens to one verse, even if he listens to half a verse, even if he listens to one word, even if he listens to one letter of this Bhagavatam, he was saying this in Hilo, in Hawaii, then he will get a chance to get Krishna Prem. So the opportunity is in our hands to get this Krishna Prem. The prayojan of this Bhagavatam is Krishna Prem, and Sanatana Goswami gives a beautiful step-by-step process in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita of the 5 types of bhaktas. He demonstrates this through the Prahlad Maharaj as a Jnani Bhakta, or we can say even first Dhruva Maharaj as a Sakam Kama Bhakta, and then Ambarish Maharaj as a Shuddha Bhakta. This is all definitions of bhakti. So these aspects of bhakti are all within the pages of the Bhagavatam. Within the Bhagavatam, all these stages are different personalities representing different states of bhakti. And then Hanumanji as a Premi Bhakti, and then the Pandavas themselves as Parabhaktas, and then of course Uddhav, this Mantri of Krishna's, as the Prematur Bhakta. And then Gurudev always describes that this is just up to a certain stage, because Uddhav himself, when he visited Vrindavan on the request of Krishna to give a message to the gopis and also to be able to understand the gopis' prem. Uddhav, he's a disciple, direct disciple of Brihaspati. But Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, is described in the Bhagavatam as being Brahman realized. So he's the spiritual master of all the devas, and he's Brahman realized, which means what is the level of consciousness of all the rest of the devas, if they're spiritual master. Because when it says Brahman realized, this means what he was speaking, what his level was. So Uddhav, he had reached this stage of Brahman realization. Yet he was the cousin brother of Krishna. Vasudev's father is Deva Bhag. Vasudev's brother is Deva Bhag. So that is the father of Uddhava. So Uddhava is a cousin brother of Krishna. So how close are they in their relationship, in their material relationship? But nevertheless, he's considered a Jnani Bhakta, even though he gets access into Vrindavan directly on the request of Krishna and goes to witness the extremity of the gopis' prem. So he's witnessing this, but finally, in his final conclusion, he's praying to just take birth as a blade of grass so that he can get some of that dust upon his head ahead to make advancement in the path of the prem of the gopis. So the prem of the gopis is our goal. This is our highest goal. And now we're discussing about Pariksit, because he is the personality who's going to be inquiring throughout the Bhagavatam. So now it's helpful to consider what is the swarup of Pariksit, what is his position, what is his internal understanding. So Gurudev has said that he attained Gopi Bhav. He only said this much about him. And in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, of course, it's described how Pariksit, after the delivery of the Bhagavatam, after he had received the Bhagavatam, he spoke this to his mother. And his mother also attained that stage of Gopi Bhav. So this is described in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So, of course, if he's listening to Shukadev Goswami, Shukadev Goswami is the parrot of Sri Radha. We remember the story, how when all the Parikas were going back, that the parrot was requested by Sri Radha specifically to remain here, to spread the glories of Krishna's Rasa Leela, because no one had really understood that Rasa Leela until this Bhagavatam was actually manifested. So Shukadev Goswami, on the request of Sri Radha, he remained. And then the pastime of him listening to the Bhagavatam being recited by Lord Shiva to Parvati. And then he's sitting in a tree, and it's described how Parvati actually goes to sleep during much of the commentaries. So Shuka in the tree is saying, oh yes, he's imitating the voice of Parvati. So Shivji keeps on speaking the whole Bhagavatam, and then at the end, Parvati wakes up and says, oh, I've missed the whole Bhagavatam. And Shivji says, what? I heard you answering so many times. Who was that answering? Then he's looking around. Who was imitating your voice? And then he sees the parrot. Of course, parrots are famous for being able to speak and imitate. And then immediately he understands this parrot has been imitating Parvati, and this parrot has heard, unbeknown to me, the whole Bhagavatam. So then he picks up his trident and he wants to kill that parrot, and then the parrot flies all over the universe. And Shivji is chasing and finally comes into the ashram of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva is speaking this Bhagavatam to his wife. Vitaka is the name of his wife. And she's sitting there spellbound with her mouth open, listening to this Bhagavatam. And Shuka, he flies right inside the mouth and finds himself into the womb of Vitaka, the wife of Vyasadeva. And then Shivji comes in front and says, oh, have you seen a parrot? And Vyasadeva says, oh, Shivji, why are you so disturbed? Why are you looking so angry? What is the problem? And then Shivji explains that this parrot has heard the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Vyasadeva says, but what is the result of hearing the Bhagavatam? That one becomes realized in God consciousness. And then Shivji, he begins to meditate on this and thinks, yes, of course, that person will now become God conscious, Bhagavan conscious, Krishna conscious entirely. So then he becomes pacified and he leaves the ashram. And of course we know the pastime that Shukadev, he remains within the womb for 16 years. And then finally his father becomes impatient because his mother is laboring for 16 years. If you've ever had a child, which I haven't, then it's probably pretty difficult keeping a child in your womb for 16 years. So Vyasadeva, he mercifully requests his son, oh please, you're giving so much labor to your mother, you manifest now. And Sukadeva Goswami within the womb says, no, I won't come out until Krishna himself comes to assure me that I will not be touched by Maya in this birth. So Vyasadeva calls Krishna, who is present on the planet at that time. He comes to the ashram and he assures Sukadeva Goswami within the womb that he will not be affected by Maya Devi in this birth. And then at that time Sukadeva agrees to take his birth, and then immediately he leaves the ashram And then in the second chapter there's this famous verse that Gurudev always quotes in his Mangalacharya. Was it Yam Pravajantam Anapatyam Apatya Krityam? That Shukadev is walking away from the ashram. Vyasadeva is running after him, calling out, "Oh, come back, my dear son. You haven't even performed any sanskars, any rites, we haven't performed any upanaya sanskar or anything. You please come back to the ashram." And it's described how only the trees echo in response. In other words, he's just set and he's fixed, he's going. And then there's the pastime of Vyasadeva sending his wood collectors into the forest to tell the beautiful verses from the Bhagavatam. One of the verses is this one that he says, glorifying about Krishna's mercy to Putana. How does that go? What's that verse? Ahol bakiyam stanakala kutam jigbamsayavai yapya sadvi labhe gatim datri uchitam tatonyam kalam nayam datri kamba, I can't remember it all. But basically it's saying that Krishna gave the position of a nursemaid to Putana in greater Goloka as a nursemaid. So this mercy is inconceivable, how this demoness came to kill Krishna, and yet he still benedicted her with that position of being a nursemaid in Goloka Vrindavan. How merciful is this? So many verses, Bahar Pita Nata Parabapur Kananiyo Kamikam. This verse also. Many verses that Vyasadeva gave to the wood collectors, and this attracted Shukadev back to hear who is this wonderful personality. It's described as a Leela that Shukadev was playing the part of a Brahmavad. He was completely self-realized and satisfied within. He had no material desires, no desires whatsoever, and was just in that Brahman consciousness. But then hearing these beautiful verses, again giving heightened glorification of the Bhagavatam itself. Shukadev Goswami, he talks about this directly to Pariksit. In the second canto, he says, we could read this when we come to this section, that directly he was in a very satisfied place of realized in Brahman consciousness, and yet by hearing the sweet verses of the Bhagavatam, he returned to his father's ashram, and then he listened to the whole Bhagavatam from his father, his glorious father, Vedavyas. So now we've reached this place in the first canto of the, yesterday we spoke something about Ashvatam and this pastime, and we tried to put it in context of its presentation of why Vyasadeva is putting it in this particular place in the Bhagavatam. In that pastime that I spoke yesterday, there were some details that I wasn't quite sure of. So I looked at that, and those details are that the two men, the two warriors who were with Ashvatam are Kripacharya, who I said, and Kritavarma, who I also said those two. But the personality who was guarding the Pandavas' camp, that was actually Shivji, Maheshwara himself. And he agrees to allow Ashvatam to come into the camp, and he gives him a sword to empower him to kill all the Pandava remaining warriors. And the pastime is that at that time, Krishna and the 5 Pandavas, Krishna is so tricky, he's convinced the 5 brothers to remain away from the camp that night. They're actually in the camp of Duryodhana. They went to the enemy camp, they took the spoils from the enemy camp, and they remained just a place separate from there, but they didn't go back to the actual encampment. So that's why all the remaining Pandavas' army were allowed to be slaughtered, and this was Krishna's arrangement again. So everything is in glorification of Krishna. Krishna is arranging everything. So this pastime is also demonstrating that complete arrangement. And then as we proceed in this first canto, after the passing away of Bhishma, and then it's described how, what's the next verse? I think it's the birth of Pariksit, then Dhritarashtra we spoke about a little bit, and then the disappearance of Krishna. And this is very poignant to read these pages, how Yudhisthira Maharaj is bereaving so much. He's feeling separation from Arjuna, and he's seeing all these inauspicious omens. And then finally Arjuna comes back. And I didn't say this yesterday, did I? And then finally Arjuna comes back and relays the devastating news that actually Krishna has finally left this world of his pastimes. And he also describes how the dacoits came and robbed Arjuna of all Krishna's remaining wives. Because after Prabhash, this pastime where all Krishna's family members destroy each other. This is again described in detail in the 11th canto, but it's also described, it's touched upon here at the beginning, how they all kill each other, and how Gurudev describes, then a white serpent comes out of the back of Baladev's body, and then he goes into the ocean. And that's the departure of Baladev Prabhu. And then Krishna sits under that peepal tree, and the hunter Jara comes with the final piece of iron from that club and pierces his heel, and it appears that he's leaving his body through that wound. At that time Uddhava comes, and Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, very beautiful instructions. And at that time also Maitreya Rishi comes, and doesn't directly interact with Krishna, but he sits listening to the conversation, so that later on in the Bhagavatam he can speak that same conversation to Vidura. So this is the pastime that took place then. And then there was one surviving person from that battle where they all, Krishna's family members, killed each other, and that is Daruka. And Krishna instructs Daruka to go to Dwarka and tell Arjuna to transfer all his wives to Hastinapur, because the ocean is about to, a huge tsunami is about to cover Dwarka entirely. So Arjuna is doing that. He's taking all these thousands of wives to Hastinapur, and then all these robbers, these dacoits come out, and they defeat Arjuna. He finds that his Gandiva bow doesn't work, and he can't defeat. And we're actually understanding this is none other than Krishna himself is coming to take all his wives back to, if their place was Vaikuntha or Dwarka, or higher still in the spiritual realm. This is where Krishna is taking his all his parakas, his eternal parakas, back to that place. So Arjuna is completely devastated by this event, as well as the passing of Krishna. And when the Pandavas hear this, then they all decide, well, now Yudhisthira decides first that now we will also leave our kingdom. Then they install Pariksit on the throne. He's the grandson of Yudhisthira and Arjuna, etc. He's the heir, because their other sons had just been killed, their own sons. So then Pariksit, he takes the kingship, and the Pandavas, they all retire. And then the next chapter, 16, is about the Pariksit meeting Kali Maharaj. And this is showing the greatness of Pariksit. Because as we said yesterday, we're getting into this whole conversation, and who are these personalities? So we understand, I've just explained, how actually ultimately his attainment is Gopi Bhav. So we're understanding this is the conclusion of this personality hearing the Bhagavatam. So this will also be inspired in our hearts, that we can also attain, as I said at the beginning of this class, how Gurudev had said that if one hears anything from this Bhagavatam, one has the opportunity to attain Krishna Prem. So this is the prayojan, this is the goal. This is why we are hearing these wonderful topics of Krishna and his pastimes in this world, and also his pastimes in Vrindavan, which will manifest later in the Bhagavatam. So, progressing through, we're up to this chapter, how Pariksit receives the age of Kali. Now Pariksit is out performing his duty as a king and subduing any difficulties in his kingdom. And it's very beautifully described that when he's on his chariot and he's roaming in his kingdom, all he's hearing about is the greatness of his family lineage from all the populace. Everyone is talking about his great father and his great grandfather in relationship to Krishna. All the kingdom is Krishna conscious. This is by the powerful arms of Pariksit. He's protected the kingdom, even though Krishna has left the planet. That by his greatness as a devotee, the whole kingdom is still talking about the greatness of Krishna, even though it's described that Kali Maharaj immediately immediately he comes into the kingdom with the departure of Krishna. Nevertheless, Parikshit's strength is that he's able to subdue Kali and keep him out of the kingdom, out of people's consciousnesses. He's able to protect their consciousnesses. This is the greatness that is described of Pariksit Maharaj. And then when he's wandering around, he comes to this most beautiful lily-white bull, it's described, who is none other than Dharma. And he comes to a beautiful cow, who is none other than Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is being beaten by this. It looks like a king, but it's actually a Shudra wearing kingly clothes. And he's already beaten 3 legs of the cow. And Pariksit, in very beautiful language, he chastises. I'll read this because it's very beautiful. There's a beautiful conversation prior to this where, I'll just read you this one verse about what I've just described. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashvatthama. People also mentioned with great affection the dealings between the descendants of the Vrishni and Prita, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. In other words, why I'm reading this is showing this current of bhakti that is so much prominent from the very beginning of this Bhagavatam. All the way through, it's about the glories of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad means the beautiful glories or history of Bhagavan. This is the meaning of this great work. So throughout, everything is completely in glorification and support of that. Now you may hear from me what happened while Maharaj Pariksit was passing his days, hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in thought of them. The personality of religious principle, Dharma, was wandering around in the form of a bull, and he met the personality Earth in the form of a cow, who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus Dharma questioned the Earth as follows. He's asking many reasons why she should be in this grieving condition. And the cow is replying that she's lost her 3 legs and she's only standing on one. This leg is the leg of truthfulness. There are 4 legs of religion. There is austerity, cleanliness, what is it? Honesty. Yeah, truthfulness is honesty, yes. Austerity, truthfulness, mercy, yes, mercy, and cleanliness, sochi. So these 4 limbs are the pillars of religion. So 3 of them have been broken by Kali in this pastime that's taking place. He hasn't actually taken over the world as he's taken over the world today, but because he's been checked by Pariksit. Nevertheless, it's described that there's only this one leg of truthfulness that is left. And then, after being questioned by Dharma, the cow doesn't respond directly saying that it's Kali's fault, because actually Kali has manifested because of Krishna. So Krishna has arranged the age of Kali. So the cow is not saying directly. The cow is saying in so many different reasons. The Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, incarnated himself as Lord Sri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. Oh, those guys. The earthly deity in the form of the cow replied to the personality of religious principles, Dharma. Whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all these questions. And then he responds to these questions about truthfulness, cleanliness, etc. But he doesn't actually say the reason for his misfortune. Her misfortune, rather. Mother Earth. Because she's not condemning, of course, Krishna. It's actually destiny. Just like the winter season comes. Who are we going to blame for now it becoming cold? Who are we going to blame for the heat of summer? This is the arrangement of the Lord. So, Mother Earth, she replies in this way, that actually it's the arrangement of Mother Earth. But then, in the next chapter, Pariksit, he confronts this Shudra, Kali, and he takes out his sword actually to kill Kali. But Kali, seeing that inevitable death, then he immediately surrenders, and is described the compassionate nature of Pariksit that he's inherited from his forefathers, declares that since you have surrendered yourself with folded hands, you need not fear for your life, but you cannot remain in my kingdom, for you are the friend of irreligion. If the personality of Kali, irreligion, is allowed to act as a man-god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Therefore, O friend of irreligion, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to truth and religious principles for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. In other words, Kali is restricting his entrance into his protected world, where Pariksit Maharaj is protecting. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped because he is the supersoul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. Thus, it is he only who awards all welfare to the worshipper. In other words, Krishna is prominent above everything. And Maharaj Pariksit, he has established this. Therefore, he's ordering Kali to leave his kingdom. But Kali Maharaj, he asks, well, where can I reside? You know, I've surrendered to you, where can I reside? And then Pariksit Maharaj gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. So in these places, but in Kali's kingdom, none of these activities were being performed. So Kali again, he begs him, can you tell me, is there any other place I can reside? And then Pariksit Maharaj gives him permission to live where there is gold. Because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. So then we understand the teachings of this, that wealth is going to increase the possibilities of these sinful acts. So in relationship to the devotees, we're not concerned with acquiring any material wealth outside of what we need for our simple sustenance. So this is clearly described in this chapter 17. And then it's also saying, therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the four above-mentioned irreligious principles. And this is in connection with wealth. So we see how Kali Maharaj, he has overtaken so much in various religious institutions even, as far as the leaders there have sometimes so much wealth. So this is also greatly restricting their bhakti. So that was in the 17th chapter. And now I'm reading all these parts to give us a solid platform to fearlessly progress into the chapters of the rest of the Bhagavatam, so we can become qualified to reach the 10th canto. If we just speak about the Rasik pastimes of Radha and Krishna without this foundation, I'm noticing as I'm traveling around meeting different people, there are younger devotees who haven't been trained in the same way as many of the older devotees were, given the advantage of perhaps being in ISKCON for so many years and going through in depth all of these early cantos. And they try to jump very quickly into these higher topics. And it's so much lacking in strength when they talk about these topics, because they haven't built a platform to understand the depths of bhakti, how bhakti grows. Now, in this 18th chapter, it's entitled How Pariksit Was Cursed by a Brahmin Boy. And it's very, very interesting. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives very interesting insight into Pariksit Maharaj's condition here. So, at this stage, Sutta Goswami begins again to speak to the sages directly. He's not speaking the pastime stories here. He's saying directly to the sages. Pariksit, who being burned up by the weapon of Ashvatam, did not die in his mother's womb because of the mercy of Krishna, performer of astonishing actions, who because he had taken shelter of the Lord did not become bewildered with great fear from the life-threatening snake called Tarshaka, called by the curse of the Brahmana, who became the student of Shukadev, and giving up all material association and being situated in realization of the Lord, gave up his body on the bank of the Ganga. So now Sutta Goswami is describing the greatness of Pariksit Maharaj in relationship to receiving this curse. He says, as long as Abhimanyu's son, the great Lord, was the king of the earth, Kali, though he had entered everywhere, could not influence anyone. This is the greatness of Pariksit Maharaj. it's important to appreciate these personalities in depth. On the day that the Lord left the earth, at that very instant, Kali, the source of irreligion, entered the world. The king did not kill Kali. He was like a bee enjoying the honey, for at that time he understood that auspicious acts bear results just by deciding to do them, whereas sinful acts bear result only by undertaking them. That's very important. So if we just think of doing something good, we get the pious benefit and credit. And if we think of doing something bad, we don't get any bad reaction unless we actually do it. It's a pretty good deal. So that's the condition that's described here. What was the condition? Now this is the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is more or less just saying that. Even if one does not perform a pious act, he gets the result. One does not have to perform the action, but should simply make the decision to perform it. Results come simply by the desire to perform the act. Kali, now this is the translation again, Kali was an attentive tiger among inattentive men. But what could powerful Kali do to the innocent people, since he was afraid of the devotees? So we should know that. Kali cannot enter our consciousnesses because actually, fundamentally, he's afraid of us. Because he fears the weapons of the great devotees. So now Sutta Goswami is continuing speaking. I have described to you what you have asked concerning pure Pariksit, which is related to the pastimes of Krishna. Those who desire their own benefit should hear these topics concerning the qualities and activities of the Lord who performed the greatest actions. The sages said, O auspicious Sutta, live for eternal years, since you narrate to us, who are mortals, the shining glories of Krishna. You let us, blackened by the smoke of this uncertain sacrifice, drink the intoxicating nectar of the lotus feet of Govinda. This is almost allegorical, because this blackened smoke was their previous mentality of wanting to attain Swarga. But now they've begun to hear the sweet topics of Govinda. Their hearts have begun to become purified and changed. So already, right at the very beginning of this Bhagavatam, we're seeing its potency acting on the sages. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I want to read this commentary. At this performance of sacrifice, this is at Naimisharanya, which is not credible because the result cannot be guaranteed due to many irregularities. In Kali, there are many irregularities, so the result of their sacrifice is not guaranteed. But what is guaranteed is that by hearing the nectar of Govinda, their hearts will be softened and changed towards devotion, towards bhakti to Govinda. So right at the very beginning, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining that the bhakti sa, or the essence of the Bhagavatam, the Satyam Paramadhimahi, is Bhakti Devi herself. So throughout all these translations and words, it's all emphasizing this quality of devotion. It's all glorifying devotion. The sages are again saying, let us not compare even a particle of devotee association to swaga or liberation. What to speak of any blessings in this world? So this is quite amazing that these sages now have given up all thoughts of attaining swaga. They're actually condemning it. They're saying it's not even a particle of what we can get from devotee association. What to speak of blessings in this world? So this is the unfolding of the Bhagavatam. What knower of rasa could be satisfied with the topics of the Lord, who is the soul's supreme shelter of the greatest devotees? Even those who are masters of yoga and the devatas headed by Brahma and Shiva cannot find an end to the spiritual qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities. This gives us great greed, a great thirst. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's describing that sadhana bhakti is just the art of cultivating a thirst to hear topics of Krishna and to attain Krishna, to attain service to Bhagavan. This is what our sadhana is for. This is why we are chanting and performing our sadhana, to give us increased thirst for devotion, to hear about the topics of Krishna. And then, of course, at some point, by the mercy of Krishna and Guru, based on the intensity of our sadhana, then that bhav bhakti will begin to manifest in the consciousness of the practitioner. And we said right at the beginning, 2 days ago, that without understanding that bhav bhakti is the goal of our sadhana actually is useless. So we must contemplate and know much about what is bhav bhakti. What is its condition? So it's described in the 22nd chapter of Jaiva Dharma extensively, the nature of bhav bhakti. And it's given that there are 9 clear symptoms of bhav bhakti. The first is kshantiya, peacefulness. One feels peacefulness with his environment. He's no longer battling with the various elements around him, with various relationships, etc. He's accepted the situation. He's accepted things as they are. He's not trying to change the environment. He's accepting the circumstances. He's very peaceful, and his desires have subsided. This is the result of chanting Hare Krishna. When we chant regularly, more and more, we find that we don't have to work so much in the material world because we don't have any more material desires. You only have to work like a donkey if you have so many material desires to fulfill. If you just simply want to maintain your life, then you need a few rotis and some sabji, etc., some roof. You don't need to have a lot of resources. Therefore, by chanting, we realize this, and we can chant more. That's the equation. The more we chant, the less we want, the less we have to work materially. Therefore, we can spend our time dedicating our thoughts to glorifying Krishna, bhakti. So kshantiya is the first symptom of bhav. We can consider how much has this come into my life. Then the second, avyakta kalatvam, that I don't want to waste a moment of my time. My time is very valuable. I'm not thinking all the time, oh, in my next birth, then I will have a better opportunity to practice bhakti. Perhaps that may be. Nevertheless, the essence or the eternal nature of my path is that powerful present moment. The nature of our souls are eternal. So it's not something in the future that I should be thinking, but I should be contemplating now, the present time. How much devotion do I have now? Death is simply how does Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada describe, a symptom of material consciousness. That is what death is. Death doesn't affect the soul at all. So it's not about changing bodies. It's about changing consciousness. It's about progressive states of consciousness. It doesn't matter how many births. That's not a consideration. What is the level of my consciousness? What is the potential today? What level of consciousness can I achieve today? How much can I relish the chanting of my mala, the holy name today? How much can I relish the darshan of Thakurji today? It's not something that we have to be considering, because the future actually is not even a reality. It's just like a dream, just like the past is actually a memory. The only reality is the powerful present. So avyakta kalatvam is the second symptom And then, what is it? Viraktya, detachment. Manasunyata, without pride. These two together. Detachment from things in this world. I don't have to get emotional about anything external, because it doesn't really matter that much in the sense of my progress in attraction to Krishna. It's not such a big deal. And manasunyata, to be freed from pride, this is a great hurdle. Manasunyata, freed from pride. Pride. We've forgotten about our pride. She's so humble. Very nice, very nice. Never even think for this. Very good. Perfect. But pride is the symptom of material consciousness. So when we're moving away from that place, we should understand something must have transpired. Something must have changed in all these years of practicing sadhana. Something must have become purified. I don't get so proud as I previously did. We must see this to encourage ourselves on this path. So this manasunyata, viraktya, detachment, and then manasunyata, freedom from pride. These are huge obstacles, but very quickly they can be purified with sincere practice. And then ashabandha, this hope of pure service to Radha and Krishna. This ashabandha, this unflinching hope in any circumstance. Gurudev used to say so many times as he traveled around, don't become hopeless. Sometimes devotees who are not practicing, not performing sadhana, they do become hopeless. So the inspired devotee is always hopeful that very soon this understanding of my devotion will become more prominent in my consciousness. I will be able to perform satisfying devotion. The devotee never really feels satisfied fully. Gurudev used to say himself, I never feel that I'm satisfying my Guru sufficiently. There is always more. It's the dynamic of affection, the dynamic of love itself. It has to be eager. It has to be enthusiastic. So if you're feeling, oh yes, I'm chilled, I've done everything, I'm really cool, fine, then where is the enthusiasm? We have to have something of this intense desperation. It happens with chanting and living in Vrindavan just by itself. We get that. It's built into the ground here, living in Vrindavan, this intensity or desperation to achieve the pure devotion to Radha and Krishna. So Ashabandha, Samutkanta. Samutkanta goes with Ashabandha. Samutkanta, so enthusiastic. Enthusiastic for this sadhana, which will progress into bhav bhakti. Without enthusiasm, then it's what? Many of the acharyas have said, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Srila Pramod Puri Maharaj also, that enthusiasm is our lifeblood. We see Tungavidya, she's so enthusiastic, always taking care of this, shelter for devotees. All day long, every single day. This is good, this is wonderful, this is enthusiasm. We should try to have enthusiasm more and more. And remember this avyakta kalatvam, not wasting any time. And then namagana sadaruchi, that having a taste for the name. Namagana sadaruchi, having a great taste for the name, that joy in the name. We wake up in the morning and we're thinking with great happiness, oh, today I have so many hours where I can chant Hare Krishna. This is the process. This is what Mahaprabhu has given us. And then ashaktis tatgunat kine, that great attraction or attachment for the qualities and sweetness of Sri Krishna. Ashaktis means attachment. Ashaktis tatgunat kine. Guna, the qualities of Krishna, wanting to hear about the qualities of Krishna. This Bhagavatam is filled and filled and filled with the qualities of Krishna and his devotees. And Pariksit Maharaj is such an exemplary devotee. We're going to see in a minute how he performs this action where he gets cursed by Shringi. And then the last, 9th symptom of Bhav is Pritistat Vashate Stale, having great priti for the pastime places of Krishna. How many times have we been on Parikrama? How many times have we been on Gurudev with just so many places where he's able to give us his mercy about that particular location, those places? This creates a great thick credit in our hearts, this affection for the Dham, knowing the pastimes of the Dham, visiting with great happiness and joy all the different holy places. Oh, Krishna walked here, he walked there. Radharani did this here. This is Java, this is where Radha lived with Jatila and Kotila. Oh, Abhimanyu, that so-called husband of Radha. Oh, Kokilvan, this is where Krishna performed this pastime. Oh, Nandagan, this is where Krishna... All these beautiful pastimes are just buzzing in the heart of the sadhak. So these are the symptoms of Bhav. If we know these symptoms, then we can make some progress towards them. We can examine ourselves. Genuinely, am I actually approaching that place of Bhav Bhakti? And if I'm not, ask a friend that you think has actually moved in that direction to give you encouragement there. This is what association is for, to attain that Bhav Bhakti. So now in this pastime, so this is the goal. Actually, I was feeling a little despondent yesterday after just talking about Dronacharya. What's his name? Ashvatthama. I was thinking, where is the juice here? I was thinking, we're living in Vrindavan, we're not even talking about Krishna's pastimes directly in the 10th canto. It's just like Ashvatthama and the Mahabharat war, and I was feeling, wow, maybe I'll just jump straight to the 10th canto and we'll just talk then. But somehow or other, I prayed to Gurudev, and then I started to read more closely again these chapters, and they're so filled, they're packed with Bhav. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says this himself in a commentary in the 3rd canto, where it's talking about the atoms and molecular time, which sounds a little dry. But he says there, at this point, he says, if one thinks that anything in this Bhagavatam is less than Bhav, has not understood the Bhagavatam. So on every single verse, even we're talking about Ashvatthama, somewhere there, for the greedy sadhak, he can find that Bhav. It's there. So now, we're going through here. So now the sages are talking to Sutta Goswami. O learned one, you are the one who prominently serves the Lord among us. Please describe in detail to us who desire to hear the great, pure, and transcendental activities of the Lord, who is the supreme shelter of the greatest devotees. They're so enthusiastic. Pariksit, the great devotee with pure intelligence, attained liberation in the form of the feet of the Lord, having a flag marked with Garuda through knowledge spoken by Shukadev. Now, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur qualifies, this is not by jnana that one attains liberation. Why do you desire liberation? As a result of knowledge, he says. No, liberation is actually coming to the lotus feet of Krishna. It's not any sort of Brahmavad type of liberation. It's coming to the lotus feet of Krishna. For us devotees, he says, jnana actually means tasting the activities of the Lord. Its result, liberation, means attaining the feet of the Lord. Pariksit is the example. Please talk about the Lord's activities by which Pariksit attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who has the flag of Garuda. So it's very clearly saying what is liberation. I just want to go quickly now through here. I'll jump ahead. But the sages are glorifying Krishna very beautifully here. And now they're saying, what doubt is there about this for one who chants the name of the Lord, who is the shelter of the greatest devotees, who has unlimited power, and who is called unlimited because he bestows unlimited qualities to his devotees. This is the mercy of the Lord. Then he says, enough of delineating the Lord, who has no equal or superior in qualities. Ignoring Brahma, and others who pray to her, even Lakshmi, with a desire for receiving all those qualities in full, serves the dust of the feet of the Lord, who has no material desires. So now he doesn't want to just glorify the Lord. He wants to directly talk about the pastimes. Who can be called Bhagavan except Mukunda, whose toenail water purifies the universe along with Shiva and becomes Agya for Brahma. This is Sutta Goswami. He's talking to the sages. He's saying to the sages, you are like many suns, not S-O-N-S, S-U-N-S, S-U-N-S. You are bright. I will speak the knowledge requested by you according to what I have understood. Just as birds fly high in the sky, only according to their ability, so the wise understand the pastimes of the Lord only according to their limited ability. So we are like birds. We all have a certain amount of ability to fly high in the sky. The sky is unlimited, but our adhikar, our ability, is only fixed. So all birds have different adhikars, so different personalities also have different adhikars. We should appreciate this and not think anything is sort of stereotyped, that actually all like that. So it's saying this beautiful verse here. Actually, Madhusudan Maharaj, he quotes this verse a lot about these birds. Like Garuda, for example, can fly so high, right up to Vaikuntha, higher, beyond. You know, eagles can fly high. The little sparrow can hardly fly high at all. So we all have our different adhikars in the sky of Krishna's mercy. Now he's saying, enough of this making the platform. Now I want to actually speak the pastime. Then he says, one day, while taking his bow and hunting in the forest after pursuing animals, he became tired, hungry, and very thirsty. Not seeing water anywhere, he entered the hermitage of a sage and saw the peaceful sage sitting with closed eyes. It's so important to understand this beginning of the Bhagavatam, why it actually manifested. Why did Pariksit go to the bank of the Ganges? The sage had withdrawn his senses, life, air, mind, and intelligence after controlling them. Having surpassed the three states, he had entered into trance and realized Brahman. He did not move at all. This was his state of consciousness. Pariksit, having a dry palate, requested water from that sage, covered with unkempt matted locks of hair and dressed in deerskin. Thinking that he had been disrespected by not being offered a grass seat or friendly words, the king became angry. O Brahmanas, afflicted by hunger and thirst, he suddenly became angry and spiteful towards the Brahmana as never before. Pariksit in his whole life had never been agitated in this way, ever. In anger, he placed a dead snake on the shoulder of the sage, using the tip of his bow, left the hermitage and returned to his city. Was he actually closing his eyes in a state of withdrawing his senses, or was he feigning trance? Perhaps because a fallen Kshatriya had come. Pariksit was thinking like this. He was thinking, was he really in trance? Immediately he began to feel remorseful for this. Pariksit's condition, now this is the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Pariksit's condition was produced by the Lord himself in order to create an apparent reason for the Lord's appearance in the form of the Bhagavatam. Pariksit never had such conduct even in his dreams. Thus it is said that this was something he had not experienced before. His state of anger did not arise from bad karma, since the result of this act was the great fortune of meeting Shukadev. Nor should one say that the cause was his great thirst. This is very interesting. It wasn't his thirst that made him angry, because actually he goes straight on from here to fast for 7 days without drinking any water. It's not that he went and took a bucket of water and then decided, oh, now I'm going to fast and not drink it. He went straight from this mood of repentance. Then Samika Rishi is the name of the Muni who's meditating. And he was feeling, it's described, I'm making it brief here. He was very remorseful when his son, Shringi, came back to the ashram was lamenting loudly. He came out of his trance. And Samiki Muni said, "Oh, my dear son, why are you lamenting like this?" And then the son, Shringi, began to describe the fallen condition of the Kshatriyas and said that he had cursed this Kshatriya who came to the ashram and put the snake garland on his father, on Somika Rishi. And Somika Rishi became very unhappy. "Oh, you have made this curse for such a small thing." And then he starts to describe the glories of Pariksit Maharaj, how he's protecting the whole populace from Kali, from the entrance of Kali. And by his strong arms, no thieves or dacoits can flourish now. And now that he's cursed him, what will be their fortune? What will be their future because of this ridiculous act? He's lamenting deeply. And in this lamentation, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur describes that he sends one of his students to tell Pariksit what he's done. And then when he discovers this from the student, he feels that he wants to run back to the ashram. Pariksit feels he wants to run back to the hermitage of Somika Rishi and apologize. But he can't, because he thinks Somika Rishi might try to counteract the curse. If he goes back and apologizes nicely, then perhaps he will want to make some adjustment. But Pariksit doesn't want this adjustment. He wants to take whatever result is the consequence of his shocking behavior. Pariksit is feeling like that. He's feeling that he has offended the Brahmanas. He's feeling that he's gone against all the teachings of his glorious forefathers. He's feeling so much remorse. And it's described, this is the cure for any act of, any deceitful act or any impropriety we may perform as devotees, is repentance and remorsefulness. This is the cure. It's called Akshep. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sings it. If you do something very wrong and you feel no remorse for it, you can never be cured from that reaction. But if immediately you are lamenting, bewailing, "Oh, I did this terrible thing, please protect me, Krishna, give me your mercy," then very easily we see in our own lives, if someone actually does something wrong to us, initially we're very angry. But if that person comes very humbly, "Oh, I am so sorry, I did such a shocking thing," immediately you feel a forgiveness will actually come from the soul. Instantly, you will forgive like that. But this is the cure. And if this is not sought out by the devotees, then we carry that burden of that sinful action. So this is in the life of Pariksit. He didn't have to carry that burden. Actually, after he received the curse, he accepted it very gladly. And he immediately installed Jamnijai, his son, on the throne. Then he goes to the bank of the Ganga, and then he sits. Now it's 9:10. I want to read something of this 19th chapter tomorrow. We can go a little bit more, because time is up. But it's so beautiful just to enter into these pages, or these words that are being spoken, and see how much bhav is here. How much enthusiasm can be engendered to render service to Sri Krishna. Now, at the time, most practitioners, when they're first reading the Bhagavatam, they're not so mature in actually understanding what is devotion to Krishna. But if we're reading the Bhagavatam for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th time, we can appreciate what is devotion from the very beginning. So we're seeing the opportunities for being inspired for Bhakti Devi right in the very first pages of the Bhagavatam. So nothing is superfluous in the Bhagavatam. So then he accepts the curse, Pariksit, and renounces his whole kingdom. He's like Bharat Maharaj. He's young. He's not old. And he's renouncing a young wife, his 4 sons, for the glorification of Krishna. So I'll read some more of that tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Thank you for your patience. I don't think it's so easy for you when I'm reading. I think it's easier when I speak. But still, the words are too beautiful to jump over. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Okay? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.